at the Homeless Initiative at the Chief Executive Office for the County of Los Angeles, and she functions there as a principal analyst. So thank you so much for joining us today and squeezing us into your busy schedule. Thanks.
Good morning. Again, I really apologize I was late today, but thank you so much for having me here. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to share with you. However, I won't be covering all the slides because I think it's pretty descriptive. And I like to spend as much time as possible to engage the Commission and the public in terms of any questions that the Commission may have, as well as what are some potential collaborative opportunities, especially in light of the fact that Measure H budgeting process is taking place. So if that's okay, that'd be really great. I have brought two documents also for your review. First document actually lists all the homeless initiative strategies that was approved by the County Board of Supervisors. And in the back, it includes the Measure H funded strategies, 21 of them, which are interconnected to prevent and combat homelessness as the Measure H ordinance requires. And another document I also brought for you was our first edition of the quarterly newsletter of the Homeless Initiative. Okay. Great. I think, as we all know, our county has a major homeless crisis, and it's further exacerbated by the housing affordability. We know that they go hand in hand. In January of 2017, when LAHSA conducts an annual homeless count, we had about 57,000 homeless residents. And what's even more compelling is that 3/4 of those counted homeless population was unsheltered. So they'd be living in the riverbeds, the encampments, buses, and streets. And in Los Angeles metro area, and this is actually a little outdated in 2015, 57% of renters were cost burdened, and they pay more than 30% of their income for rent. And then 31% of the renters were severely cost burdened, as in they pay 50% of their income for rent, which means that this makes it extremely difficult to be able to prevent homelessness, because we could be combating homelessness all we want. However, if we could influence the influx of the newly homeless people, then we'll be a lot more effective. Just a brief table. It shows you again the continuous increase of our homeless residents in our county, as well as in the gray bar that represents the unsheltered homeless population. In 2018, another homeless count has taken place. The results will be made available in May, and we're bracing ourselves because there may be an further increase in the homelessness. I think everyone is familiar with our service planning area distribution, and this also provides you the breakdown of the homeless counts that were taken in January of 2017. What LAHSA estimates is that this is, again, only point in time, you guys. So it means that LAHSA estimates 3 times the number of the total number of homelessness of the homeless people go in and out of homelessness. So in actuality, the total number of homeless people who experienced homelessness in 2017 far exceeds what we counted on that day in January. All right. How many of you have heard of County Homeless Initiative? Awesome. Great. Thank you. So it was really about seizing the moment due to the increase in homelessness, as well as some key opportunities presented to the county, including the Affordable Care Act, and as well as increased interest at every political levels on homelessness. Homeless Initiative was launched in August of 2015. And it's actually housed within the County Chief Executive Office's department. And the initial goal was to develop a set of comprehensive and coordinated strategies to be able to combat homelessness. And comprehensive is very important because we know that homelessness is not caused by one root cause, but then there are pronged root causes that contribute to homelessness. It was an extremely inclusive and collaborative planning process, including 18 public policy summits and 4 focus groups with people living or have lived with experience of homelessness, and community meetings and over 200 public comments. So it's hard to see on the screen, but then the document that I provided, this gives you the 6 categories of the homeless initiative strategies, because again, every homeless person requires different set of services, and our goal is to be able to meet them where they're at, to be able to engage them and help them leave homelessness, as well as to retain their housing. I will be providing Cheryl a revised PowerPoint. I noticed that this morning the strategy A slides were not included. As you could see in this document, in the pink box, it's our prevention strategies. So we have A1 and A5, which are Measure H funded prevention strategies for individuals and families. So I would like to also present that to you, to the Commission, in case our target population for this Commission could benefit from that. I won't spend too much time on each individual strategies, but ultimately, strategy B in the yellow category, in the orange category, excuse me, it's about subsidizing housing for various populations. For B1, it's for people who are served by public social services, the general relief participants. For B3, it's really targeting the cities with the public housing authorities so that they could utilize their housing vouchers to be able to support rental subsidies. And I assume that a lot of our clients, that the Commission serves, may also be receiving those rental subsidies, as well as who may need rental subsidies in the future. Okay, and then we're also partnering with the cities as well as many other partners to be able to secure rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing really targets people with not so high level of acuity who may just need temporary services and rental subsidy for 6 to 12 months to be able to get back on their feet and to become self-sufficient. So before, again, it's working with the local public housing authorities. And this is really important. It's been quite popular for landlords and property managers who are willing to rent the units to the homeless population. And the reason is because we provide one-time holding fee incentive payments, because sometimes as our clients go through the application vetting process, it could take time, right, for them to become, eligible and qualified, and we don't want to lose that precious unit once it's been identified. So we also provide like a security deposit and things like that to make sure we retain that unit while our client is going through the vetting process. Also, sometimes the property managers are very fearful that their property is going to be damaged. So we also provide reassurance, letting them know that above and beyond the security deposit, that we also provide some damage mitigation funding, as well as we also provide move-in assistance, whether it's small furnitures or the basic living necessities to make sure that our homeless residents feel at home in their new home. B6 really targets the clients in the children and family services. And often, and I'm not sure if this is the case here, but sometimes the only barrier that prevents children from reuniting with their parents is lack of housing. So we created this strategy based on what we heard from our community so that this really promotes the most expeditious reunification of the families so that they could live together, and of course it's also for their well-being. So B7 is for the interim bridge housing for those exiting institutions, which include the criminal justice programs, the hospitals, and the foster care. And this is to provide some temporary housing so that we could provide them with outreach and engagement services so that they could be linked to more of a permanent supportive housing, which I'll get to, which also is coupled by intensive case management services, substance use disorder services, and mental health services. Increasing income is a huge component of assisting our homeless population. You'll be amazed how many community meetings that I go to and the community neighbor residents would say, or even a news, radio, person would say, homeless people are lazy and they just don't want to work. And we all know that is not true. In fact, majority of the homeless adults do want to work. They just need some skills to be able to become more employable and to be connected to services. And that's what the social enterprise strategy does for C2. C456 is coupled, and it's to support our countywide benefits and advocacy program, targeting the veterans as well as the jail inmates, as well as those who may have some disabilities. And it's to be able to link them to their entitled benefits, as well as provide them that comprehensive wraparound services, because again, these are a little more high acuity clients, so that they could, again, move closer towards securing their supportive housing. I'm not sure if this would really apply. This is really partnering with the Sheriff Department and our Department of Health Services. And Jail Enreach works with all identified homeless jail inmates so that they could start receiving services in jail, so that by the time they're ready to be discharged, they could directly be connected to services. Because you'll be amazed at how many people who end up right back in the jail just because they didn't receive the services that they needed. Similar for Office of Diversion and Reentry program, and again, targeting the inmates so that they could successfully be reintegrated into the community. And D6 is public defenders' efforts, and the mobile outreach units will be increased next fiscal year. And what they do is they work with the community organizations and the cities to be able to host outreach days, so that people with misdemeanor, crimes, they could actually come to get their, crimes be expunged. Oftentimes, that is a key barrier to securing housing as well as employment. E6 is coordinating a system of outreach. So we have over 30 multidisciplinary teams countywide, and there are specific numbers for each SPA. And it consists of medical personnel, mental health personnel, substance abuse personnel, as well as outreach workers and peer workers to be able to really engage the homeless individuals and families in the street. So it's really talking about the unsheltered population, like some of the most difficult to engage people, right? And oftentimes very chronically homeless. So our goal is to be able to meet them where they're at so that we could link them to services. Sometimes when we're lucky, it only takes a couple efforts to link them to services. Sometimes it takes 3, 5, 7 years, and then bam, one day, our homeless client would say, you know what, I think I'm ready to get some services. So they do an amazing job. Creating a coordinated system, it's really to strengthen our CES. So as part of this, and I think this is going to be really important for this commission, it comes with housing locators, because it doesn't matter how many services we could provide unless we could really implement the housing first model. And that means that there's ongoing battle and pursuit to increase the housing capacity, because people only get better once they're in a very stable environment. So E7 not only includes quality improvement efforts and regional coordination, but also includes housing locator services, which tries to expand and, of course, retain current existing housing stock, as well as housing navigators who work with the clients and the CES providers to be able to connect them to the appropriate level of housing, as well as technical assistance and capacity building for a lot of our providers. Now we have some newcomers as providers because a lot of the community coalitions and especially faith-based agencies that have empty lots or buildings that could be utilized for safe parking, for example, because sometimes due to lack of housing capacity or because people want to live in their car, Again, we want to be able to create some innovative programs like safe parking where they could park their cars. And then we would also have bathrooms and showers on site, because as you guys all know, there's a major outbreak, but we also want to make them a very comfortable place as much as possible. And we'd be employing our multidisciplinary teams, because again, to capitalize on the opportunity to engage them and outreach to them. So we have a variety of services for this, and we're also funding the cities who were interested in developing homelessness plans, because I'm not sure if the commission works with the cities individually. Sometimes the cities feel as if homelessness is a county's problem, and sometimes the cities have a very limited scope in terms of what they could do to address homelessness. And then some cities are amazing and they go above and beyond. So the county has funded 46 cities in our county, and they're in the process of engaging the community as well as engaging their internal departments to come up with a comprehensive plan, and that will be due to the county end of June this year. EA is to enhance the emergency shelter system. We have identified that, how many of you guys have read LASA's 2017 Housing Gap Analysis? Excellent. So what LASA does is, for the second year this year, they identify what are the housing supplies available, which includes permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and emergency shelter, as well as prevention units. And then they compare that to what is the need. And then the difference is the gap in terms of what we need to be able to achieve functional zero for that point in time. So, for example, for shelter, we identified that we would need 3,200 additional shelter beds to be able to meet the needs. And what's been amazing is that by leveraging Measure H funds, as well as non-Measure H funds, like the Whole Person Care Act funding that we're getting from the feds, that we believe that we will be able to fill that gap for next fiscal year. However, that doesn't mean that we're going to fully be able to address it, because there is that continuous incoming homeless people who are going to be knocking on the emergency shelter facilities. Also, yesterday was the due date for the shelter providers and cities to submit their proposals to expand the shelter capacity, whether it's rehabbing or building new construction. So we're hoping that we'll be able to significantly increase the number of beds for that as well. And then lastly, the pilot program for the shelter bed availability system will go live this month. It means that the public safety officers, as well as the service providers who work with the homeless people, they'll be able to go to a LASA-based LASA's website to be able to identify where are the vacant shelter beds right now. And it means that they could directly refer the client to that shelter to prevent clients going there and only to be told, I'm sorry, there are no beds. So that's going to be piloted with a small number of partners in March, and we hope to go fully live by next month. E14 is very similar to E7 in terms of strengthening the CES for our youth population. And F7 is to increase the affordable homeless housing. What's really exciting is that there is a one-time $10 million funding for innovation. An RFP will be released end of March or early April, and it's going to be available on our website. And we're calling for proposals that will innovatively build and or finance housing. So if there's something that the Commission's also interested in, since you also partner with a lot of the organizations who are in the housing development sector, I think that'll be really helpful as well. Our goal is to be able to execute contracts by July, the beginning of next fiscal year. I'd say that these 7 for last, and it's to provide supportive services and rental subsidies for those who require higher level of services. we believe that over next 3 years, we will support at least 7,000 new additional permanent supportive housing units. And ultimately, it not only provides housing, but then it provides intensive case management services from the Department of Health Services, which is not just medical services, but a lot of supportive services in terms of job training to be able to balance your checkbook, things like that, as well as, so here we go, DHS, transportation, housing search, preventing eviction and whatnot. And then there's also the mental health services. And again, these are for people with mental illnesses that also provides a lot of medication support and crisis prevention services. Finally, the third component is the substance use disorder services. And as you know, under the drug Medi-Cal, we are expanding our system of care. I'm going to skip through this one because this really targets the providers. This slide goes into just a timeline of Measure H since December 6th of 2016 when the Board of Supervisors placed Measure H on the ballot, and then March 7th of 2017 when it passed, when the voters chose to tax themselves for the next 10 years to prevent and combat homelessness. And then June 13 of 2017 when the board ultimately approved a final funding recommendations for this fiscal year and tentative funding recommendations for next 2 fiscal years. And you're going to see those recommendations on this side of the document that I provided. Oh, okay. All right. So you might be wondering, so what's happened since Measure H was passed? As you guys know, the county wasn't able to collect Measure H taxes until October 1st. However, the Board of Supervisors made a commitment to implement Measure H strategy starting from July 1, and that's what we did. So it's a little outdated, and we hope to be able to generate a little more recent data in about a month or so. But since July and up until end of last year, December, what I could share with you is that nearly 7,300 people entered crisis, bridge, and interim housing beds, so a lot of the E8 strategy beds, including 811 individuals who were discharged from institutions, including hospitals, foster care, and jails. Over 3,300 homeless families and individuals secured permanent housing, which is the ultimate goal, right? And I want to emphasize secure and retain, because if they're not able to retain housing, then it's a complete waste of money and effort, because it's going to take more time and more money to get them back in housing. And then also over 4,000 people have been engaged by outreach teams, as well as over 4,200 disabled individuals who were assisted with SSI applications and veterans disability benefits, as well as over 2,500 inmates who received jail and reach services. Over 1,280 clients are linked to the intensive case management services, which is that comprehensive wraparound services, as well as nearly 1,000 deputies and sergeants who received first responders training. Because oftentimes the first responders, they're the first group of people who interface with the homeless people. And instead of criminalizing them, we also want to be able to leverage their presence and their expertise to be able to link our homeless families and individuals to the right level of care of services. The last thing I wanted to share is the county has really diversified our partnerships, including our private sector and private funders. So the United Way has recently released a community outreach toolkit, and it's really to engage the community in promoting siting of the supportive housing. We all know that the City Council has an opportunity to pursue building affordable housing and homeless housing, and then due to NIMBYism or whatever perceptions that community has, they all come up in huge groups and then they oppose, and sometimes the project dies. So our goal is to be able to really work with the community, and this really provides a step-by-step approach. And then the last one is Everyone in Campaign that's being launched by the United Way. Our launch date is tomorrow at the Echo Park. And it's at, I believe, 11. And it's to really activate people across the county to build the momentum, as well as to make, help community become more informed in terms of what homelessness is about and what homeless people are not. Because we all believe that everyone has a role to play in combating homelessness, and this is one of our countywide social campaigns that we'll be launching in partnership with United Way. So I'd like to pause there, and if you would like, I am open to any questions as well as any recommendations. I have my pen with me to explore any strategic alignments with the Commission's work as well as future collaboration. Thank you.